everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Capes and Lunatics. It's me, Phil. Lilith is here. Kristen is here. And we have a special guest. All right. I'm gonna slaughter your last name. So Marcus will introduce
Marcus
yourself.
Alqueres.
Alqueres. Yes. Okay. And he is here today to talk about the movie he direct. Well, you did more than direct Warden, right? You
Yes.
saw your name on the credits a few places.
Yeah.
So before we really jump into the movie, so were you a big comic book superhero fan for a while? Because I mean, it seemed pretty like someone behind the scenes had, it seems like a lifelong comics fan.
Yeah, for sure. Since I was a kid, was reading all comics a kid, X-Men, Superman, and all the popular ones. And I grew up in Brazil, so we're also consuming same American comics as you guys.
Wow. So did you search out this movie, or were you like did they come to you and be like, okay, you know your superheroes, so
Yeah, I mean, I started by directing this short film called The Flying Man. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It got viral, 10 years ago. To this date, it has 25 million views or something like that. And it's a superhero film that I did on my own, produced, and I think since then I started enjoying the playing with superheroes, but giving it a more of a grounded take and a different angle from what we're used to see on the big movies. And then the script came to me by Steve Zerling and Jeff Juhasz, Sarah Kinga, all three producers, and Jeff wrote the script, and they were acquainted with my work from the Flying Man times, and they approached me with the script. And when I read it, and I totally fell in love with it because it was written as a documentary, and I had never seen that till that date, So say, wow, superhero film told as a documentary, realistic, and I always loved actually that mockumentary format, faux documentary, fake documentary. I don't know how people call it, and I always loved that format. From short films to feature films, and that one was written to be a fake documentary, and the themes, political, cultural, society, and it's just a different angle from what you used to see in superhero films. And from when I read, I loved it, and they took me on, and we had a little bit of financing at the time. That was 2019, and then 2020 came, and we all know the COVID hit, and we lost financing, and I lost all my directing gigs at the time because nobody was filming anything. And then I went back to the visual effects industry, which I had a career for more than 10 years, and I was working on The Mandalorian because I couldn't direct anything. So I was working on the visual effects of Mandalorian. I made a little bit of money, and that money I decided to finance Warden on my own. And that was the start of it. So it's kind of a very shoestring budget film, but because of the format as a documentary, I knew I could embrace imperfection a little bit, so low budget, and it kind of like it's part of the style of the film, embracing low budget, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the format style because you do get into kind of a lot of oh, hey, what if there were a superhero in the real world? What would it mean for them legally and just morally? And just even from the beginning, I was like, I've thought about this before. It's like, in the modern world, would anyone be able to realistically keep a secret identity?
Yeah, I think that was the approach we took. Like it would be very difficult, right? I guess now with all like DNAs, you drop DNAs everywhere. They could easily find your secret identity, and I think we actually have a line or two about that in the film, and he deliberately decide not to embrace a secret identity, and because he was kind of a loner in the world as well. Like he only had his father and kind of a girlfriend. I mean, I think there was not a lot of people for him to be worried about. So I think he decided to be kind of this open identity, like Tony Stark type of
Mhm.
stuff, right? So yeah, it was deliberate. It would be so hard, too much energy trying to keep your secret identity in this world. Realistically saying,
I just like, I mean, in the modern world, just cameras everywhere, and
yeah, science is so advanced. AI, I mean, they could definitely I guess they would reconstruct your face behind a mask or whatever, like a drop of hair or something. They could
Mhm.
easily find you.
Yeah, I found it was very interesting just because of the documentary style. You got footage, like news footage, you got experts talking about this. You did get the the girl from his past, everything, and it's just like, so we don't really spend a lot of time with the main character. I mean, we do see footage and stuff. So just when you go on later to talk about the legalities and everything, it's like, okay, should I be on this guy's side? Should I not be on this guy's side? It's very, people could be swayed either way.
Yeah, it was deliberate to explore from every angle but his, right? So it's almost like as we consume celebrity material nowadays, we consume from different windows, and we just make up our minds about certain person or certain leader. Um, and I think, and even him, everything he puts out about him, uh, it's controlled. It's more of a controlled message. So he kind of creates this persona, and then we try to explore as it's happening around the world nowadays. Like you got the supporters, you got the haters, always like those 30%, and then you have in the middle that kind of shifts from one side to another. So we try to play a little bit with that kind of a reflection about our own society and how we see our leaders nowadays, and how we may set them in this very dangerous path of dictatorship, or being too totalitarian regimes. And I think you may start as a democracy, but you end up as giving too much power to someone. So I mean, it was kind of an interesting reflection on what happens. And we believe it could feel very familiar to a lot of people from even different countries. This was shot in Brazil, but originally Warden was written to be shot in the US. And because, again, because of the pandemic, I was stuck in Brazil at the time, and it made sense for us to shoot in Brazil. We started shooting end of I think beginning of 2021, when they started getting more flexible, and I was in Brazil, and we had to adapt a little bit the script. And funny enough, we didn't have to adapt that much. Everything that was written to be in the US, it kind of worked being in Brazil, which kind of shows how globalized we are in the Western society. Of course, we had to change titles and some government structures, and there was a whole segment about the army with the US that wouldn't make too much sense in Brazil. Um, but that was also fun to realize that we didn't have to adapt too much, which I think you could say that it would be a very international scenario, right, on
Mm.
this. And you mentioned about the interviews, the documentary style, and I mentioned about the low budget, but my line of thought before producing Warden and of course directing, it was, well, if I shoot all 6 7 interviews, I know I would have a film, right? Because I could just cut them back to back, and that they drive the whole film, right? And but I knew also it would make a very boring film, because people also love seeing visuals, and visuals also create that kind of a rest from the dense material we had in the script. But I knew also the coverage in all those visuals cost a lot of money to produce because you need multiple locations. You can afford like you shoot a low budget horror film that you everything happens in a house, right? So as a documentary, from one side you have this kind of you can embrace low budget and you can embrace imperfection, but from the other side you have to produce many things on many different places from different times, and that costs money. So after shooting the interviews, which were, a easier to produce, I had to okay, now it's a balance, how much money I have to produce the visuals, to strike that balance of okay, this film can be people can digest the film, and I don't break my bank. So I wish I had more visuals, and because I guess people expect that a lot when you mention the superhero word, they want to see a lot of action and all that kind of stuff, and we didn't have that much. This is more of a documentary and political and reflection on things and themes and stuff. But yeah, so that was the balance we had to strike.
I mean, I think the just the way the footage is that there isn't so much. It kept it more mysterious. It's like, okay, again, everyone around the world pretty much these days knows how the media works, and it's like, okay, so are the people who are for Warden, are they trying to paint a brighter picture than it's really is, or is the other side trying to paint him in a negative light when they shouldn't be? So yeah, I think the shorter the footage, it kept it more mysterious.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also intentional when you suggesting more than showing.
Hmm.
In films in general, right? I'm big fans of films like the first Jurassic Park that you kind of suggest way more than you show. At the time was due to the limitations of visual effects, but it made actually a very, very, very good film to this day, even compared to films that other Jurassic Park installments that you had all the visual effects you can have, but still it doesn't make it a better film. And I think that's trying for us embracing the low budget in the sense of lack of resources. It just make for more creative choices you have to make to compensate that you cannot show certain things as it happens. And in Flying Man, my short film, I did use that a lot, and it kind of made it look more of a horror film because you're not constantly showing, but suggesting he's there stalking you, and you also playing through the criminal angle. So from the criminal's perspective, so you kind of like he's there hiding, you don't know exactly. So I mean, as a director, I have fun trying to explore different perspectives from this familiar genre as superheroes, and I think that just gives it a spin. Like when you read Marvel's that comic book, which is from the perspective of people in the ground, from photographers, from the people, so they're watching the superheroes from beneath. So I think that's an interesting angle to me.
Yeah, that's why I like the documentary style, because it's like you're not in with the character every minute of the movie. You're kind of seeing him from the ground up and stuff. So
Yeah, it's a
I mean,
different way,
yeah.
I think. You know,
I was just gonna ask. I mean, it's okay if you don't want to be super specific, but when you talk low budget, like how low are we talking? Because I know that I mean some of these superhero movies are like hundreds of millions of dollars, but I mean you can't actually make a decent movie for way, way, way less than that.
yeah.
So
But it's a good question, Kristen, and I would give you a number if I had it. But as a low budget producer and not very experienced producer, like I'm an experienced director, but not a producer, so I wasn't creating organized sheets of things. I started spending things as in the fly, and I say, okay, I still have money in the bank, so I'll spend a little bit more. But also because I'm not computing my own time. which, if I were getting paid, because it's easy for someone to say, well, this short film cost $2,000, but he didn't pay anybody, or he didn't even pay himself. So it technically didn't cost that money, and you cannot replicate that commercially, right? So if I would put this film in a commercial environment, industry environment, right, which you have to pay minimal wages for, union crew and VFX and stuff, it would probably be in the range of maybe a couple $100,000 or even a bit less. But I'll definitely spend less because, I was working on this for a year and a half, almost full time, and I didn't pay myself. So if I would compute the salary I make, even as a VFX artist, year and a half, it's already a good sum of money. If you put in the budget. So I think out of my pocket, I don't know, maybe in the mid range between $0 and $100,000, maybe, I don't know. It's but again, it doesn't represent the real budget, right? It's money out of my pocket, not getting paid. Of course, I paid everybody in the film. And that was another curiosity because I didn't want to lowball anybody, but I was benefited from the case of the actors. Usually you have, like, in a feature film, regular feature film, from 20 days working with an actor to 10 days or 5 days, whatever. But each actor in this film, they only work for one single day because they had all those lines, and those lines I could record in one single day. And it was very challenging for the actors because they had 20 pages to memorize and drop it in one single day, which for me as a producer was great because I could negotiate a day rate with each one. Mostly, I think just uh, uh, the actor who played Warden, Giovanni, he had 4 days. The rest was basically one day. So you negotiate a day rate, and then to shoot the actors, it was just me and the actor because of COVID as well. I try to keep uh, the set very lean, and it was extremely lean. It was just me and the actor. I was operating two cameras, a microphone, directing, sometimes doing a little bit of makeup, so I could save money on that too, right? And although I was paying everybody was just one actor. And that's how you also simplify production. I try not to lowball professionals. I mostly try to design production very lean. And I think, even try to resist help, even free help, because free help costs you extra food, extra transportation, because you're not, okay, I'll come help you for free. Say, yeah. So how do he reaches the set? So I need to pay at least cab, right? Because I'm not asking him to spend money on my production. So for those reasons, I'm able to make it. It's basically the way I produce my short films. So in a way, you keep it bare minimal to tell that story, right? So it's hard to talk about numbers when I'm trying to, not, on a day on set like that, me an actor, it costs very little because I'm only paying the actor. If that makes sense. Hopefully I
Oh
answer
yeah,
your question.
No, I mean, it's great. I mean, even that, yeah. I mean, because a lot of people would probably think you're saying low budget. I mean, like $1 million seems low budget compared to
Yeah, depending. Yeah, correct.
300
Depending.
million. But when you say low budget, you mean it.
Yeah. It's very, like, not a lot of people working on this film in production, so we keep it very, very lean. And it was also in Brazil, which exchange rate also played a good part because it was like 5 to 1, 6 to 1 to the dollar. So I was able also to cut costs just by spending in Brazilian currency. As people also do in when they shoot different countries, tax rebates and all that kind of stuff.
So I see like you like like practical effects and like did like the digital. So do you have a preference, or do you like to mix them?
Well, I try to use my own tools, and my tool is VFX because I had this career in VFX, so I basically know how to do a shot from 0 to 100. But of course, I would love to do practical as much as I can. But for me, practical would cost a lot of money
Mm.
because then you need, do things on set. You need to build things, or sometimes spend money on safety, all that kind of stuff, depending the type of practical you want to do. I try to approach is more of a trying to when I'm designing a visual effects shot, I'm trying to design from the concept, right? Because I think I try to explore more of darkness and suggesting rather than just putting a VFX shot for everything. So even in Warden, it's a limited use of VFX shots because I know it costs money, and in my case, it costs time because VFX shots they're not done in one day, so you have to be working for days in just one shot of your film. So I mean, I to me, even as a director, I think it's case by case. I cannot say practical all the way or even VFX always. To me, it's like let's look at this. Sometimes practical is the best solution. Sometimes VFX the best way to go, or the mix of both, which is always also great. So yeah, I try to avoid, like some of the directors saying this is all practical. There's no VFX in the film. And when I know like 500 people who worked on that film in the VFX department, like I think marketing nowadays in films, they're like waiting on this no VFX thing, which I think is just BS, most of the time, because even some films that were claimed to be all practical, they won VFX Oscars, which doesn't make any sense, right? If you think about that. But and yeah, I think it's VFX is present now everywhere. Any film you can think now because it's just. But I'm a big fan of invisible VFX. When you clearly are immersed on a film and you don't see the VFX happening, or even when you see it's clearly VFX, it's so well made and so well designed that you totally sucked in.
Yeah, like I know you said a lot of this was like the conversations and stuff, but like when Kristen was asking about the budget, this doesn't look low budget. I mean, this is it's well made. It's well made.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think everything starts in the conception, right? So if you try to aim to the moon with the money to go to another city, you're in trouble. I think you have to be honest with your budget and use your tools. When I say use your tools, is if you a director with acting background, you're probably gonna wait on mostly on the actors and and if you're a director who has the background in visuals, you know how to save money on visuals, how to design your scenes. But thanks and appreciate you saying that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just being honest and being and know your budget and not try to aim for something. If I try to emulate Marvel with the budget I have, it would look like terrible. So it's trying to strike that balance.
If you had an unlimited budget, what kind of like superhero movie would you want to do? Would you want to do like a full team? Would you want to do like
That's a good question. um, I don't know. I think unlimited budget. I think my mind doesn't even go that far. um, but I think I'd go more for the second part of the question, which is what type of superhero would I truly love doing? And if I can think of films like Wolverine or Deadpool, more character centric.
Mm.
I love those. The first Iron Man, which it had more of that character work that you get so drawn on it, because I think the whole Marvel universe it came to fruition just because, that's my opinion, because the first Iron Man film worked so well,
Mhm.
right? I think that kind of opened that big door to all the other films coming so strong, and then you have the assemble films. But I think just because the first one worked so well, and with the actor um, and the character, and I think that just opens up a bigger thing. And all those character centric superhero films, I love them. And those would be one that I would love to one day perhaps be part of.
Mm.
Yeah, I forgot the name of that last Wolverine film. It was post-apocalyptic. Logan. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Logan is it's something that attracts me a lot. That as a
Mhm.
director.
So you'd love to do a Marvel movie. Would it? Who would you? What kind? Who would you want to? What movie would you? What character would you want to use? One of the ones you already mentioned, or someone else?
Yeah, probably those. X-Men. I love X-Men since I was a kid, even watching the cartoons, and I think there's so many cool characters that could be explored. But even the universe, the mutants, and the people kind of afraid of the mutants, and I think that kind of a universe is super interesting to to explore, even as a spin-off. Like they did on shows like Gotham and Penguin, that they explored the universe more than the central characters,
Mm.
which is Batman. Um, Penguin was so nice to the TV show. That kind of stuff. I'm really drawn to it,
Mm.
and you don't need to pick a famous superhero. You can just have a story surrounding that universe. X-Men. You got the mutants versus the people. That could be really interesting to find that kind of a mutant character that is not known and just make something around him. It could be really cool, kind of a spin-off.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's a certain segment of the population that are at least going to give your product a look if you're like, oh, hey, there's superheroes in this, or there's superpowers in this.
Yeah, yeah. I dig even books like I don't know if you're familiar, The Reckoners, Steelheart. It's a trilogy of books, which it's basically there's this thing that comes next to Earth, and then just makes people randomly develop powers.
Hmm.
Not everybody, but just some people. But 100% of them, they become villains. And I mean, it's just so interesting how they portray the society shift when that happens, and in a way it's very realistic. But then quickly the world becomes a post-apocalyptic, that those they call epics. Those epics, they start like ruling different parts of the cities, and it's the big mess. And then you have this group called the Reckoners that hunt the epics, but they all become villains, which is interesting. There's no superhero there. It's just villains and a group of humans trying to hunt them. And I mean, I love exploring worlds like that. I know they're developing that film for a long, long time, but so far we didn't see any real film yet. But it's an interesting book. It's not a comic book. It's really a book from Brandon Sanderson. That kind of material is really interesting to me.
Any thoughts, Lil?
Oh no, you've been doing a great job. Keep it going, Phil.
I don't like the, I
Um,
don't like the hog the time.
I was gonna ask, so since you are obviously a VXF, yes, I said that right,
Yeah, thanks.
person, so what is, not that you should not be getting adequately remunerated, what is it that makes VXFX so expensive? Is it the time? Is it something about like the computer is sucking in a bunch
The
of
knowledge.
electricity? Like people always talk about how it's really expensive, and I'm thinking like but it's on the computer, so you don't have to build anything. So like
Yeah.
what?
But you do.
Yes.
You just build it
I
in
guess.
the computer.
Yeah. I guess. Tell us about it.
Well, it's a mix of things. I can give you a quick rundown on a shot breakdown. For instance, it's a mix of a lot of people working. If you watch the credits, you're gonna see probably more than 1,000 people on a Marvel film, and they work for at least more than a year sometimes. And you just multiply that for their hour rate, which can go from, I don't know, $50 to $80 or something for a general artist, and they just multiply that and you get a lot of money. And it basically, things take a lot of time to polish and to make it. For instance, I worked in movies like The Planet of the Apes, the first one, and I worked on that movie for maybe 10 months, 9 months, and you end up with maybe a minute and a half of animation from the film, right? Imagine someone paid me for almost a year's salary of a senior artist, which definitely is making an over 100 grand a year. And then you end up with a minute of animation, but that just animation. After animation, someone takes my scene and light, and another artist go there and put fur, another artist go there and put lights and textures, and then there's another artist that creates a compositing, like they take this layer of VFX and compose to the shot footage. So I think just for one scene to be done, you need at least 10 artists to put that together on a big studio. And those 10 artists, that just from one scene that plays for 4 or 5 seconds, and then you multiply that for sometimes 1,200 scenes in the film, a big film, and then you end up with a huge amount of money. And there's also lots of waste on the VFX process, because you got your supervisor, department supervisor, and then you have the VFX supervisor, and then you have the film director, and then it's smaller chains of commands that you got to go through them. And you might just go through your department supervisor and stops at the VFX supervisor and then goes back to you, and then you have to go again and run that cycle over and over and over. So there's a lot of hours. And when it gets to the director says, "Oh, no, guys, you went to the wrong direction," and you already spent maybe 40 hours on that. And then you have to go back again. So someone paid you to do nothing, basically, because everything was thrown away. And then you redo the whole thing again. So yes, there is. I estimate from, if you're talking about a big film, the VFX process at least burn 20% or 30% of the cash in the process, because there's lots of polishing before it gets to some decision makers, and then they decide for something else, and then you throw everything out. So all that adds up, right, on budget. Plus there's lots of people working, and that's why I love cases like the Godzilla minus one. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
And it won the VFX Oscar, and it was really like amazing to see. It was a very small team of, I think it was 12 to 20 artists, compared to the thousands of a big Marvel film or any big franchise film. So there was only 12, 20 guys, and the director was in the room with them all the time. So there was no money wasted on bad communication or someone trying to polish something before showing the director, and the director says, no, that's the wrong direction. So director was there, like shortening the bridge with the artists, and the artists were really like not 100. There was 12 of them, and they were really efficient and probably they were generalists, not specialists. Which specialists is where you do only animation, and this guy only does texture. When you're a generalist, you can do a bit of everything. So in a way, they spend like a fraction of a price of a typical Godzilla movie, and the result was so nice, they won the Oscar, right? And they spent a dime. That was a really interesting case to study, to be honest. So hopefully I answer your question.
Yeah, yeah.
So do
It's
you
an
have?
underappreciated art form, truly.
Oh yeah, it's one of those jobs where it's like if you're doing your job very well, people, they're just they take it for granted. But if something doesn't look right, they're like, oh, what was it with those effects? So
Yeah, I'm just sometimes sad to see VFX getting a bad reputation, saying, "Oh, there's VFX in this film, so it means it's gonna look terrible." But they say that about films that the VFX does look terrible, but they don't say about the other ones that the VFX just became invisible. I have films like Top Gun. They say all practical, but you go there, there's probably 700 VFX shots on that film,
Yeah.
and you don't see it. But the marketing of the film is all about saying it's practical. Things like that. People don't see it. I think it's VFX like any other craft in the filmmaking business. If you do it well, people will appreciate, and if you don't do it well, it could be a makeup, right? Practical makeup. Like you can do terrible job or a great job. And I think it's the same. I think you shouldn't throw that under the bus just by saying it's VFX. So
So
yeah,
when they say practical, does that mean that like we're actually doing the stunt or something? Is that what
yeah,
they're
they're actually
or like
drive
practical Godzilla was
piloting. Yeah,
okay.
they're actually there was this racing car racing movie, whatever. They were saying it's all practical, like we're driving the cars, but I know it's not, because I know a lot of people who worked on that film. I don't even remember the name, but they when they say practical, I think that kind of it gives people. I think once you're an audience, you get more interested seeing that the actor is doing the job, right? Like, okay, he's dancing, like he's actually dancing instead of putting a double, right? So it's more interesting for you to see an actor who learned the craft of, like, he's playing guitar, so he's actually playing, he's actually singing. So you kind of get it instantly gets more interesting to watch. And I think they try to do that with VFX. So no, we're actually piloting the airplanes, or we're actually driving racing cars, but they're not. I mean, they are in a certain level, but you definitely enhance the whole thing, because there's also visual enhancements, which is a very smart way to use VFX. You enhance things, you don't create from scratch, which you use the best of both worlds. You do a little bit of practical stuff, but you enhance the whole thing, right? Later, so you get the best of both worlds. That's usually the best thing to do. You strike that balance of, you know get a bit of the like we do that a lot in VFX. We shoot smoke, we shoot elements, earth exploding, and then you just go there and you comp that into a film. It's technically VFX, but it was shot from a real explosion or a real smoke or real dirt. So, many techniques you can use.
are there any companies trying to use more AI? Is that, I mean, is or I mean, I'm sure. I mean,
Ooh,
I'm
just go
sure.
for the sore subject.
No, no, I'm just saying. The AI is not going to be as creative as a human being. But are there companies who try to cut corners using AI?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think everybody
What, a
now.
company cutting corners? No.
Yeah, I know that's far fetched.
I
Capitalism?
mean, I think honestly, before even me, before every project, I'm always thinking, how can I cut corners on this? Because that's to me as a director, I want to tell stories, right? How I can execute my story so I get them faster out there. So I'm always, of course, trying to cut corners to, but of course, I mean, AI. I think it's bad if you think that it's gonna take people's jobs, and it will eventually take. But I think jobs will probably transform as well.
Hmm.
But the good use of, I don't think there's a good use, but I mean, the biggest use of AI now, it's helping you as an assistant mostly. I think that's the best way to use AI now, because I don't even think today it's prepared to do final VFX work. it really helps you to create elements to your own work. Let's say you a matte painter, those guys who create those, they paint the mountains, the big skies and stuff you see in the films, right? So they don't shoot that on real life. They just paint some mountains like they used to do back in the day in the glass. So now there's no more glass, so they do that digitally. A matte painter, they might just create the first draft of their matte painting in AI, but then they go there and they take some of the elements and they add their own stuff. They add some of the pictures. I even mentioned before, but matte painters or texture artists, and we tend to rip things from real life, right? So you needed this texture for this creature skin back in the day. How you would do it? So you just rummage the internet trying to find a crocodile skin or whatever. So you basically, someone took that photo, so you rip that photo. You don't give credits or anything. I'm just saying like the general process, and you're not using the photo. You're actually using a little piece of the photo to kit bash to something else, and it becomes something else. So in a way, AI is helping people do that more efficiently. So you may create a texture and an image, or you may just create an element or a little smoke just out of prompt, and then you use that to kit bash a bigger work. Because it's not just what AI gave you; it's what AI gave you, what you took something from a different place and something you draw from scratch, or and so on. And I think right now it's being used definitely. There's tools in AI to do rotoscope, which is something super laborious to do. Every time you see, oh, they shot those guys in the forest, and then you watch in the film, it's not a forest anymore, it's a desert. Say, how come? Because someone went there and rotoscoped those guys. This poor artist that had to, draw a mask around each frame. And that's how it used to be done. Someone drawing a mask on each frame of the film, so you could mask out the background and put the new background. Now they can do that in AI with AI tools, and I mean, there's many uses. What I don't, and as a director, I also use AI to do pitches. Like sometimes you just need to put something out there quickly to show your idea. And I never pay an artist to do that. So there's nobody losing jobs here. It's really, it was always me trying to, every director I know, they try to do that themselves. Of course, sometimes you pay someone to do a little research for you, and they still there. They still have their jobs. But now I can use other tools to show ideas. Before, you try to grab that frame from specific film. But now you can create your own, right? So you don't need to rip from someone's film to show your idea. When I say rip, it's not to use commercially. It's really you create those mood boards and lookbooks, which is so important for you to
It's the
communicate.
such and such meets such and such. That
Yeah,
yeah.
you got to create that kind of how do you want to communicate your idea to a producer, to a financier, or to an agency? If you're a commercial director, you got to show somehow, so you start getting a lot of work from. So AI is helping a lot on that process, because you can create some mood boards and mood images. They're not ready for production, but they're ready to convey an idea, if that makes sense. So I think AI is a much bigger topic, and very sensitive. But I try to stay close, mostly because I don't want to lose my job. Coming from nowhere and take your job. So if you stay close, you cannot go with it and understand the good. You know what I'm most afraid of AI? To me personally, that I don't enjoy the process anymore, because I love going on set, shooting, traveling to shoot stuff, and being there holding the camera. I'm afraid that you may be able to create a shot digitally and just giving prompts to people to do that. That's what I'm mostly afraid, not to lose the job. And I think if you think of craft and execution, that's the where AI will really like take people's jobs and stuff. But if you're thinking about conception, creating ideas and things like that, and I think I don't even think it's going to be ready for that anytime soon. AI is really a way to execute something faster. You're still going to need someone creating that. So I don't know how disruptive this will be for craft, but I think for taste and conception and those things, and there'll be still a lot of. So I think there'll be more people creating and less people executing. I think roughly that would be my take on AI, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's of course I'm not a futuristic, so I don't know. That's just my um, lonely interpretation of what's going to happen and what I'm already seeing. Things to execute is getting a little easier. Now everybody can put like, imagine watching those AI films 5 years ago. I'd be surprised. Now you'll just look meh, and but 5 years ago, say, wow, they did that. But I mean, it's just I think the value it will shift from beautiful images to actually meaningful stories. Because I think, once, the new cameras arriving, the digital cameras, just putting a beautiful image out there, people are just getting, oh, how you did that. You would get popular films just because they get like amazing cinematography, digital cinematography done on a budget. But now people need more than that. They need content like solid. They always needed that, but from time to time in those transitions, they get distracted by it's like VFX when it started, like the first big VFX. Wow, that just sell tickets alone. But now, like, just put big VFX doesn't sell tickets anymore. So I think AI will be the same. You first have that wave of people getting wowed by how easy it is to produce a great image, but then they go back to, um, what really matters.
Oh yeah, I think different people's creativity is what it's going to drive people to the movies, not just a machine creates this.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, now I have a very important question. Where can people watch Warden?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Warden's on demand in North America on Prime, Apple, YouTube on demand, Google. I think cable. I think everywhere you can have an on-demand system is probably there. Hopefully, it's there.
That's a lot of places. Some of them I didn't even know had on demands.
Yeah. I mean, some cables people don't even use anymore. I guess you can have the pay-per-view there. It should be listed. But yeah, mostly Prime, Apple, where most people have both of them. You'll be able to see Warden.
So if we want to see more work from you, we need to go out and stream this movie over and over, correct?
No, I mean, you can go on YouTube. I have a channel on YouTube, Marcus Alqueres, Vimeo. All my work is in the internet. I always put it out there. I didn't even go to festivals. I put my short films there. And they range from superhero to horror. But they all have a different take on it. So hopefully people, there's some they're more popular than others, but they're all there. So if you want to check it out on YouTube, you're probably going to find most of them.
And are you on any social media just so people can keep track of what's coming next and everything? And
I wish I was more active on social media, but yeah, I post from every 6 months. But you can see on the usual Marcus Alqueres on Instagram, on X. Those are the ones I'm probably more active, which I post every 6 months. The others I post every year, I think. But yeah, I wish I was more active on social media. But yeah, I guess I'm always trying to film something else. But once it's done, I put on YouTube and Vimeo. And my YouTube is the same. It's every year I put something there. It's not every week.
Well, it takes time.
Yeah, it takes time. It does.
So, Marcus, thank you for your time. This was a great conversation, and it was a great movie. So, yes, thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Kristen, Lilith. I mean, appreciate the space and for us to discuss Warden. And yeah, it was a pleasure for me.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot.
Glad you did.